Excuse me. Call the Energy Utilities and Telecommunications Committee to order. It's been a long day, and I tried to make it clear there at the announcement at the lunch break that we would still meet. I just wasn't sure what time, but different people trying to meet. But anyway, we have a quorum here, but we're having a hearing, so we're not going to take a vote today anyway. But with that, let's see who is here. You're a good prayer. Would you pray for us?
I'd be happy to. All right, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the opportunity we have to come together as Georgians to discuss the energy needs of our state. And we're thankful for the wonderful people we have the opportunity to serve with, not only in the chamber, but in the halls. And please bless us that we'll be mindful and we'll make good legislation going forward. And we're thankful for our families and all of our many blessings. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. So we're going to hear this House Bill 1152. There's a sub, and Chairman Camp will give us a LC number on that. And after the hearing today, it'll be assigned to a subcommittee, and in the subcommittee meeting, then there can be testimony from the different parties. Today, it'll just be Chairman Camp presenting her bill, and if she has anybody with her that she wants to help with it or explain anything further, that's her right to do that. So anyway, before we get started with that, I would just say before I forget about it, that when there is a subcommittee meeting on this, which is going to have to be really quick, pretty soon, because it's hard to believe, but the days are starting to run to it's going to be day 28, I guess it is. Is that the day we cross over now? It'll be day 28 before we know it. In fact, I think we have and we don't have to meet on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock, but we are fortunate we have an assigned time and assigned room. And so we'll have a meeting next Tuesday, and then the next one after that, 2 weeks from today, that meeting will be like 2 days before crossover day. So we can't put things. We can have things right there that close, but it doesn't help the author of the bill any to do them like that. But I would say, if there's anybody here from the industries involved in this bill, for your testimony, I would hope that for Georgia Power, which is the energy company involved in this bill, and the Public Service Commission for that matter, I would hope you'd be ready to talk about this program that is in effect for, I think, the 5,000 or maybe more rooftop solar people now that get a special rate. It's not the avoided cost, but a special rate that Georgia Power had agreed to. So I hope that Georgia Power will be ready to talk about that and how that seems to be working well, I guess. So how rates other than the avoided cost can be applicable, if that's a word. With that, Chairman Camp.
Thank you so much, Chairman Parsons, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this bill. I live in an area where huge solar facilities are not looked upon favorably. In my home county, Pike, there was a huge solar project. It was going to be a utility scale project that ultimately did not happen. The community was not in favor of the project. But I bring this today not because of that necessarily, but because smaller scale solar is more palatable for many individuals. And this bill, which is House Bill 1152 and is LC 365755, S is in Sam. And I'm hoping all of you have a copy of the sub. And my thanks to Legislative Counsel, especially Sean Murray Story, for working with us on this. There's been a couple of subs on this, simply because as we've been talking to shareholders, they've brought up different points that we have tried to address. I've had several people come talk to me about this bill, and as I mentioned to all of them, bring me some bring me some words. Tell me what you want it to say. And we're happy to help out in this. But explaining this, it's known as the Georgia Homegrown Solar Act of 2024. And this goes on the first couple of pages describing the definitions. And it talks about what a community solar facility means. And if you look at lines 38, it generates electric energy that is fueled solely by ambient sunlight and is connected to the electric service provider's distribution system, is no more than 6 megawatts in alternating current, is located within the same electric service territory as the customer it serves, is not located on the same parcel as another system that meets the requirements of subparagraphs A and C. And then it goes on to customers and utilities. We're looking at probably 5 acres to approximately 30 acres. This is not large scale by any means, but when you look at what we were told recently regarding the potential energy shortage, Georgia Power filed paperwork with the Georgia Public Service Commission back in October stating that they're anticipating 6,600 megawatts of new energy to meet our state's needs. And that's huge. That's like 3 plant Vogels. So that's a lot of energy. And I know that we have lots of sunshine in our state. So this is certainly an opportunity. Well, I guess at this point in time, could I bring up someone else to discuss the bill further? Thank you. All right. So I'm going to let Steve Butler come up. We've got some industry folks that we're going to let him introduce.
Thank you so much, Representative Camp. It's really nice to be here. Chairman Parsons, members of the House Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications. Just a really profound thank you for hearing about this issue today and learning about community solar. This is something I feel very passionately about. I've been studying it for over 15 years now, and have been working on it in states all over the country where we've had a lot of success in bringing real savings to customers and bringing rates down. So my name is Laurel Passera, and I am the Senior Policy Director for the Coalition for Community Solar Access. We represent more than 120 businesses across the nation who have deployed over $10 billion in private capital to upgrade the electric grid and build community solar projects around the country. I'm here to voice our industry's support for House Bill 1152. This pro-business bill will help lower long-term costs for all ratepayers, make Georgia energy independent, and stimulate billions of dollars in economic development in the form of jobs, gross state product, and local tax revenue. CCSA supports an all-of-the-above energy strategy where state governments can prioritize the types of energy that make the most sense for their state. Community solar can be a very helpful part of that strategy. Community solar provides every household and business access to solar energy without needing to install a system on site. Each array has multiple subscribers who pay for a subscription and receive a credit on their electricity bill for their portion of the power that system produces. So a lot of times when I say this, I think about subscribing to Netflix or something. It's a subscription product where you receive a credit back on your electricity bill. Projects have a mix of subscribers, including renters, small businesses, churches, hospitals, and schools. Facilities require 5 to 30 acres and are often co-located on underutilized or underperforming farmland, helping farmers diversify revenues and hedge against commodity prices and uncertain crop yields. Facilities are also built on commercial rooftops, brownfield sites, or landfills, providing value for spaces that otherwise have none. The benefits of this type of energy are many. First, community solar improves electric reliability by distributing generation so the grid is more resilient to weather, cyber attacks, or other large-scale disruptions. It also spurs private investments to improve the grid's distribution infrastructure, often to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars per project. And because facilities must be built in the utility service territory where the customer resides, it creates homegrown energy, reducing Georgia's dependence on imported energy from neighboring states. Secondly, one of the key benefits of solar energy is its ability to stabilize and potentially lower electricity rates. Solar power, once generated, incurs no fuel costs. The sun provides free energy. This can lead to lower utility rates over time as the cost of generating electricity becomes more predictable and less subject to the volatility of fossil fuel markets. When commodity prices spike, like they did last winter, ratepayers won't have to bear the brunt. Third, community solar saves customers money. Customers still receive power from the utility, but subscribing to a community solar project typically provides a savings of 10 to 20% on their monthly bill. That can be a lot for certain households or businesses that are participating. Community solar is a major economic driver and would attract new businesses. Economic impact studies from similarly sized states across the country have found that community solar programs create tens of thousands of jobs over the life of the program, in addition to generating billions in economic impact and millions in local tax revenue. This energy generation also requires no state subsidies nor taxpayer money to scale and achieve this type of economic impact. So the bottom line here is that Georgia needs an estimated 6,600 megawatts of power to keep up with the demand over the next decade. Community solar can help meet this demand at the lowest cost, all while providing real benefits to the state and its residents. Today, along with our diverse coalition of proponents, we respectfully ask you to support HB 1152. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from the committee? I hope so, because that's what we want to try to, I know there's been questions asked, so now's the time to ask them in here, actually. Who's first? Where's he at? Oh, there. Chairman Martin.
They say never sit with your back to the door down here, Mr. Chairman, so I moved away. You got to come along high the window to get me at the fourth floor. No, I have a question. I don't know if this goes to the author or to the folks. You're reading through the bill. I've heard different things about it, but I heard the lady say she's for the bill, but I think it might be advantageous for somebody to explain to the committee exactly what the bill does.
Well, I'm happy to do that.
Because, I mean, there's more to it. It's just the solar. I mean, I think I understand with it, but I think.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I
Okay,
think
so
it's
that was the
important
30,000.
piece. Yeah.
Let's get down on the weeds.
Yeah.
All right, so the bill would allow the PSC to work with Georgia Power to come up with a rate structure for what, and regulation on how ratepayer or how the customer would be compensated, how much the kilowatts would be, how much a fee would be for the transmission use. All that's something the PSC would have the power to discuss and make decisions on. No one in this bill is saying that if it's 13 cents a kilowatt, the customers should be credited 13 cents. That's not realistic. There's a grid. There are power workers. There are customer service agents. They built the lines. And so we have faith that the Public Service Commission would be the wisest entity in the state to make the decisions on the fee structure. This gives them the ability to do that. And it's very specific. It's facilities that are less than 6 megawatts, and also between 5 acres and 30 acres. So there are some parameters involved, and this would be a conversation between Georgia Power and the PSC. I did not intend for us as a legislative body to start telling anybody what rates they need to do. But this is certainly a vehicle for a conversation. So, you know, everything's going up. And we're looking at the energy demand of our state. There are people that want to do this. Neighborhoods, for example, if you live in a neighborhood and perhaps you can't put rooftop solar on because your house is not facing in the correct direction, this is an opportunity for maybe, at the end of the cul-de-sac, 5 acres goes up, and so many people in the neighborhood who like solar can subscribe, or perhaps it pays for the generation of cleaning the pool and over the interim. There's a lot of opportunities for it. Also, nonprofits having the opportunity their nonprofit organizations, their churches, to help absorb some of the energy costs by having solar available. But it is a conversation for the Public Service Commission and Georgia Power to determine the rates.
Follow up. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, and I just, again, I knew basically what we're looking at here is a net metering type situation and a different way to look at that.
I'm going to disagree because net metering implies that it is exactly what the cost to the customer is what they're being credited for.
Well, that's one definition, Chairman Camp, but net metering is generally used across, it has been for over the last decade for the combination of trying to work this out. So, I mean, I take you on, not capital, capital in net metering if you're going to a zero, that you're suggesting that, but I was meant it as a general statement. You're looking
Okay.
at a way to do that.
I got you.
And if I can, Mr. Chairman, just back to, and I'm sorry,
Laurel Passera.
Ms. Passera, you mentioned to lower, because I've heard this around for a while, sitting on some national committees. You mentioned lower the cost to all ratepayers. Tell me how, in general, you see that working out.
We've done studies in states where we look at the price suppression effect of renewables. So you look at the way that the grid is constructed. You've got a big investment in some sort of generating plant, and ratepayers pay for that over time. It's similar to solar, only the good thing about solar is that it is the fuel is free, and so there's not the same ongoing fuel costs that go into that system. So it essentially balances out the grid and brings all of those sort of average costs
Okay,
down.
so you don't have an example of it that actually has done it. You have studies that say it should. The reason I ask that is because the more people, what our tariffs, and maybe for the PSC when they get here, but I think the PSC sets our tariffs that we pay for the various tariff levels in Georgia based on a return that's guaranteed to the incumbent electrical provider in the area, including their return and their cost to administer, over time, and they set that at that rate. And so in other states, I know, Hawaii is one, for instance, that have people waiting to get on the grid because, when they tried to do that, it was pull so much of the cost of the grid off that it made it unaffordable. So that's what I get to, the lowering the cost. So it's a theoretical lowering the cost. Right? And that's fair enough. I just wanted to know if you had a specific case where you had seen it happen, because in my experience, states that for have a larger renewable portfolio than Georgia in most cases have higher rates than we do at this point.
I would agree with part of that. I would say that a lot of those states had higher rates to begin with for a lot of various reasons, but solar is just still such a small portion of the grid right now that we're trying to forecast out what it will look like when states are meeting these big clean energy targets. And so, we've done, I can send you some of those studies. I can follow up with a better answer, afterwards.
That would be awesome. And I don't want to
yeah.
belabor that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, you said no taxpayer money. Is my understanding that this solar, there's still a federal tax credit for solar. Am I wrong there?
Yes, there is this federal tax credit.
So there would be taxpayer money. You mean,
no.
did you, and my question is, did you mean state taxpayer?
Not state.
That's fine. That's what I
Sorry.
want to do. And are you familiar, or do we have anybody, Mr. Chairman? She mentioned also the energy that we import. I know that's a big deal because of the interlink out in Texas during the cold snap when they didn't have, because of their grid and what they were going to do. Do we have anybody from PSC that, where we're interlinked, and are we in a place where we are importing a lot of electrons or energy from other states? I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Try to get it, and you'll have an opportunity to ask
Okay.
folks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Representative Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions, so if you can indulge me. How many families are we talking about this would affect if we pass it?
I'm blanking on the
percentage
exact
or-
number, but I think we usually say about 1,000 households per project. I can follow up with the more exact number, but it depends on the mix. Some projects, the mix of subscribership really reflects the community. So sometimes it's about half commercial customers, half residential. Different companies sort of have a different approach to the way they do subscribers, but I think we typically say about 1,000 homes per project.
So my second question is, or comment is, my fear is that, and I'm all for solar. I'm all for solar. But my fear is that we're going to lower the cost for a very small percentage of families, which would result in an increase in cost in everyone else. So can you guarantee us that that won't happen?
Well, I think, what we typically say is as long as the PSC, we go through a thorough process with the PSC, and the credit rate that we set out matches that value that Georgia ratepayers get, there should be no cost shifting. It is a process to design that rate, but we go through it in different states, and there we can provide a lot of, the PSC can do a study. We could do it a various number of ways, but there can be, typically we try to say that the value that we provide outweighs the cost of the program.
I understand that part, but can you guarantee that this will not cause higher prices for the other families in Georgia? I understand the process. I understand that it can be done, but will it be done?
We can work with that. We can probably work through some language in the bill, and I'm sure that's a potential way to.
But I don't know that there is language that would guarantee something like that.
Well,
I don't know.
I think
Council.
there's studies that we can do. Typically, we do.
And Madam,
I'd
the
like to hear
PSC
from
would
Ledge-
work
is
with
Ledge
them to
Council
set those rates. It would be a set rate by the PSC. So this does not take care of that part of it, the bill here today. It does allow that rulemaking process, and once they set those rates, they're going to be enforced. So once the PSC goes through that process, you will have a guaranteed rate. We can't guarantee that. The PSC will through their process.
So there is no guarantee.
Once it goes through the PSC, yes.
But right now in this room today, there is no guarantee.
No, and the bill doesn't. The bill does kick the rulemaking process, so the finality of that's not decided till it goes to the PSC. So we don't have purview over that.
Well, and
I think that's
and
part of the problem.
I'm sorry, Representative Hutchinson. I don't think you were here when I spoke a little earlier. This bill allows the Public Service Commission and Georgia Power to actually get together and figure out, we don't want to take anything away from Georgia Power, the services they provide. We don't want them to be compensated. We don't want other ratepayers to be paying for someone else engaging in solar. So my understanding is from talking to the PSC, they feel the same way. So they will structure a rate system so it is not a burden to other payers.
So just so that I understand, so that could happen, but that's not a guarantee.
Well, I guess, do you trust the Public Service Commission to make wise choices?
At this point, I don't trust my dog. So I don't know. The answer is no. I love my dog, but I don't trust him.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It's a doodle.
All right, does that kind of answer your question? We don't set rates, and we wouldn't do that, yeah.
In this room, I don't want a constituent calling me saying, you voted for this and my bill went up. That's what I'm trying to
Well,
prevent.
that could happen.
I know, that's the
anything
problem.
we
That's
could
my
do.
problem.
I mean, I can't promise you yes or
know.
no on that.
I know.
Representative Brad Thomas, are you here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to say in general, giving people the opportunity to have solar power, in their community, kind of like a free market principle idea to me, which I'm okay with. Additionally, the fact that if it's in their localized to their community, if you own a property, then to me that's a property rights issue. What you can do with your property, what you can't. And that's just a high level, but I have a lot of questions on this bill, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be very thorough. So I don't know how much time you
You may ask some questions. I mean, I don't know how many you're talking about because you'll have.
okay, we're going to go back to subcommittee with this?
You're going to have the opportunity
Okay.
to ask
All right.
probably some of the questions you're going for an answer for from some of the people who will testify. But
Okay.
I want questions asked, but if it's something you think that they can answer here, yes.
Okay, great. So I'll narrow it down to 3 questions. How's that? All right. My first one, where did you come up with 6 megawatts? Where does that number come from?
I believe that number comes from the Georgia Power IRP. Oh wait, sorry, 6. I thought you were talking about the 66
line 40.
Sorry.
B, it says no more than 6 megawatts in alternating current.
Typically, we start to see economies of scale for these projects around the 5 to 6 megawatt range. And so what we call these sort of community scale projects because they are, they're sort of in between utility scale and residential or rooftop sided, and they're big enough though to really allow our developers to achieve economy of scale and bring those prices down for the cost of the equipment, bringing interconnection to that project. So it's really just a sort of a financial sweet spot, if you will, for the project.
And currently, those programs are limited in Georgia to 6 megawatts or less, so it's between that and the current statute.
Okay, yeah, so I guess my thing is, if this is supposed to be set up to a group in a community, and if they only need 4 megawatts, is this going to be limited to 4 megawatts because that's the usage of the community that wishes to engage in that solar?
I mean, you could do one that's 20 kilowatts if you wanted to. Like I think the
No,
cap is 6 megawatts, and you can do anything underneath that typically.
But what my question is shouldn't the limitation be to whatever the demands of that community that choose to engage in this activity versus a cap of 6 megawatts? Because what I don't want to see is now all of a sudden the community only needs 3, but they build for 6 anyway, and they're selling 3 out to the grid.
I believe I think some of that concern is mitigated through the cap on an individual subscriber's portion that they can take. So I don't think it would be advantageous of them. They would probably be wasting a lot of money if they did that. So the financial aspect wouldn't work for them if they. Okay. But it's nice to have for communities to have flexibility to build those bigger projects and serve their community.
So, and this is my last question. So this is number 3 for the record. I'm going to do what I said. Lines 90 through 92, specifically, subscribers may elect to have bill credits for one or more community solar facilities allocated to the customer's accounts within the service territory without regard to physical location. Can you explain that to me a little bit?
Sure. I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but
just a general, can you generally drill down on what that means?
Typically the way it works is I'll give you an example of how some of these are set up. You can take a manufacturing building in a community that's got a huge open rooftop, put maybe 4 megawatts or whatever that rooftop will hold, and then people in that community and small businesses, churches, nonprofits, residents can all sort of subscribe to that one facility and get an individual bill credit on their home or business bill. So it's kind of like you're buying a coupon for your electricity in a lot of ways. You're paying for a subscription and you're getting a discount on your electricity bill because we're able to bring those economies of scale and bring that the price of solar down because of the cost.
You keep hitting on one point that I've brought up that I've already done 3 questions, so this is a comment. But rooftop solar is not ever going to be really, I don't think, viable to the point where there's really a true break even on that. So, I see what the direction you're going with that. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go ahead and I know there's many more questions, so thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I said 3. I'll do like Chuck. I'll hit my button again. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Representative Mandisha Thomas, is she here? There you are.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. So, and I'm a proponent of solar, and not to put any one provider above any other in energy, but let's just take Georgia Power's solar program, for instance. Can you itemize any particulars or anything that would differ from their solar program that they currently have in relations to this here?
I can't because I'm not familiar with that program, but I could take a look at it. But typically, we bring private investment. Utilities are so crucial to our economy, obviously, and they provide so much value. They're a really big organization, and so they rate base projects and they do their accounting differently. So they're not able to pass those savings on that solar is able to provide to customers like the private industry.
I'm sorry, Chairman, I didn't hear her last part. You said they're
Oh,
not able to?
Sorry, they're not able to pass along those savings from solar typically as private industry can.
Okay, that answer your question?
It did, but Chairman, can I have one follow-up question with the
Yes,
author?
go ahead.
Are you able to elaborate a little bit on that, Chairman Count?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not 100% sure and clear on the Georgia Power plan that they have available. I do know that this would be more of a private, where someone would own their land and Georgia Power would, I'm not Georgia Power, I'm sorry, the private company would come in and put the panels, the solar in. I am a little bit familiar with the fact there is a program, and I'm not really clear on, this would give people a choice, so they could use other providers for this. So that would be the biggest thing, would be the choice aspect.
And right now, Representative, it's under their purview what they want to do or do not do. And it is a relatively small program, but I'm sure they'll talk in length about what they do.
Representative
They've-
Thomas, I will say this now, and it appears that you are on that subcommittee this is going to go to. You'll have the opportunity to ask Georgia Power, how they do it. I mean, they could probably describe it to you better than we could, so.
Okay.
But you'll have the opportunity to ask that question. Yes, sir, you got it.
Just a quick question. I'm sorry, I apologize for walking in late, but just a question for the author. Is this the community solar company, is that a for-profit business?
It's gonna be
Yes, they are.
something
They are
like-
for-profit businesses, and they provide. Someone I guess would call them up and say we would like it here, and they would come out and make an evaluation. Would you like to elaborate on how they site plan?
Sure, and we do have some of our esteemed industry members in the room, if you want to grab them later. But you can't put solar everywhere. There are certain parameters to where you look at the grading of the site, the proximity to distribution lines. There are a lot of things that go into where a project can be sited. So it's not going to cover the state of Georgia. We're pretty picky about the way that we cite projects. So a lot of times people will come to say like, hey, I've got this big farm, I would like to lease out for solar. Or a lot of times developers will look at the landscape in front of them and they'll say, oh, this looks good based on all of these GIS layers, and this particular parcel could be a really good site. And so they may send a flyer in the mail to a farmer to say, hey, we're interested in your land. Are you using this? Would you like to lease it out and make a long-term lease revenue from this part of your land? There are different ways that can be done. And I will say it's not all private industry. Other types of community organizations can do this too. So
But you answered my question, you're a for-profit company.
they are
and-
for-profit
and
companies, typically.
My concern is that, we've got a great regulatory environment here in Georgia. And we have reliable, fairly economical power. And anything that we moving forward that might disrupt that and basically deregulate our energy grid, it gives me great pause for concern, just as we've experienced our friends out in Texas that went through that disastrous weather scenario, and their grid didn't function very well. So I'm open-minded to Representative Thomas's thing about solar. I see the benefits of it, but I've just hit the pause button when I'm hearing about one for-profit company approaching other for-profit companies and saying, hey, we want to make money off your capital investments. I need to hear more about it before I got comfortable.
I
with
will
it.
say really quick that all of these projects go through a very rigorous study with Georgia Power to make sure that they don't impact power quality, reliability, or safety. That is paramount. So Georgia Power still has control of how all of these projects will connect to their grid, and all of the subscribers are still Georgia Power customers. So we're not talking about deregulation.
Also, the Public Service Commission, which regulates Georgia Power now, will have control over rates and who adds on to the program, who was approved to be part of the program. So it won't be, companies just setting up shop and saying, come here and connect. These are projects that'll be planned out and well choreographed.
Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Boy, I don't know where to start either. Thank you, Chairman Williamson. What you mentioned is probably some of my biggest concerns. Georgia, I'm very proud of the of electricity system and policies we have in the state now. I think it's works very, very well with our electric utilities, building capacity and the distribution system, and it's working real well. We got some of the lowest electricity rates in the nation right now, and we see it, companies coming here because of it. And I think this bill really deviates from the great system we have here now, and I think it comes at a lot of risk if we were to go down this path. Just for the reliability, the quality. Solar's tricky. It's not a very efficient generating system. It's only about 25% when you take in night and rainy days, and so the scheduling and the amount and reliability can be tricky. And I just got great concerns of. On line 11, you said electric utility shall accept these interconnections, and as along with Representative Williams said, it's forcing one company to accept what another company is building. This company wouldn't be building the transmission, the other parts of our system, electric, that very vital to get electricity to their customers. So I just think this bill is not in best interest of citizens of this state. Long term, it just poses a lot of concerns to me going forward. So, but thank you for thinking this way, bringing the bill. Certainly consider it. That's my thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. There's some more questions I wanted to ask. I don't normally do this, but what's on my mind, just the way this thing is structured. Currently, it's my understanding anyway, that Georgia, if somebody were to build a solar facility like you're talking about, which produces electricity at certain times of day and certain weather conditions, things like that, but it's my understanding if you offer that to Georgia Power today in their territory, that they have to take that, they have to buy it from you. Is that correct or not correct?
Under PURPA, the Public Utility Regulatory Act of 1978, Georgia Power is required to accept interconnections for projects.
Okay.
Yes.
So given that then, so right now, with what I'm building out here, nothing has changed. You built the facility and you're selling that electricity. I guess it's called selling it. It's selling it back to Georgia Power, for which they would pay you the avoided cost. Is that right?
Under
And here again, we're not talking, so you haven't done anything yet. You haven't got any subscribers yet or anything. You're just sitting there. You've got this facility providing electricity, and they're buying the electricity from you at the avoided cost. Is that correct?
Under PURPA
Yeah.
rules, yes, that's
Okay.
that's the case for the whole country.
So so now we move on to what we're doing here. So Georgia Power is paying you for that electricity at the avoided cost, is my understanding. But with under this, then you would sell subscriptions to individuals or families within that area. You would sell subscriptions. So Georgia Power is paying you for the electricity at avoided costs, but then you're also going to charge that subscriber something for that subscription. Is that correct? I mean, obviously you are, but you're going to charge them a subscription at a price that would be set under this scenario that Chairman Camp explained that the PSC would set up. Is that correct?
The bill credit rate would be set by the Public Service
Right.
Commission, yes, and companies would contract with subscribers and provide that sort of subscription piece. Yes.
Okay. So your company is getting paid by Georgia Power for the electricity that you're selling to them. Is that right?
Yes, that's what the PSC would
I
do.
mean,
is
excuse me.
set the rate.
Georgia Power is paying you for that electricity. I think I got it backward. Georgia Power is paying you for that electricity.
Not exactly. No.
Why would they not be?
They're the way that developer or companies get paid through this is through the bill credits, essentially through to subscribers. So the companies don't get a payment from Georgia Power and a payment from the utility.
I'm not talking about the customer. I'm talking about your company. Would your company not be getting paid by?
They get paid
Georgia
by the
Power?
subscribers. Sorry, I didn't understand your question. They get paid by the subscribers, that subscription, and then Georgia Power would put the bill credit on the subscriber's bill.
Okay.
And it's kind of a circular process.
Because I keep hearing that there's 3 streams of revenue that your company would get. It would be getting from Georgia Power, from that subscriber, and then back from the tax credit.
No, the way that the projects are set up is that the subscriber and the company enter into an agreement, a contract, and the Georgia Power puts that bill credit onto the subscriber's bill. So they get paid by the subscriber.
Okay. Maybe Chairman Martin can clear this up.
From experience with the institute I went into at Idaho, I believe the 3. Mr. Chairman, I believe you're right on this. I mean, they through the subscriber credit are going to achieve revenue. If somebody gets a $20 credit, I don't know if you get $20 or $21. I don't know exactly, but that's not for here today. They get that credit. They get a federal tax credit if it's available, for a period of time, and then on line 109 of the bill, the utility is required to buy any overages, unsubscribed electricity at avoided cost directly from the power company. They're required to. So I think those are the 3 areas that you're talking about, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And typically that unsubscribed portion is small.
All right. I just wanted to ask that cleared up in my mind because part of this, except when you get into the area of signing up subscribers and that part. Putting a facility there today, you can do that. Mm-hmm. You can sell that back to Georgia Power for a price. But then when you get into the part about having subscribers and of course there's a question about that, whether it's how do you define that, as a matter of fact, having a subscriber? It would almost appear that they are buying electricity, not just subscribing to a service. How do you define that?
Subscribers do not buy electricity from community solar providers. They buy a bill credit. It's not a sale of electricity.
Okay. It seems like it would be. But, okay.
We don't.
It's a financial transaction.
Yeah, electricity. It would require wheeling of power, and we don't wheel power.
Okay.
So.
All right. That's it. I apologize for interjecting myself here. Representative Kennard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I'm a very happy Jackson EMC customer. They're great. Their 2024 projected energy mix looks like 55% natural gas, 40% nuclear, and almost nothing in coal. But they project about 3% in renewable energy, which solar would be a part of that, so it would be a much smaller percentage than even 3%. Georgia Power has similar, except they have a lot more coal. Why do you think currently with those 2 entities, solar is such a small, microscopic part of their energy mix? And does it seem like, I know we can't be completely reliant on solar, it has limitations, but I think we're more capable in Georgia of more than 1 or 2%. And why does it appear that they're slow walking solar, in your professional opinion? Or is that just my perception?
Representative, thank you for your question. I'm Steve Butler, and I represent the community solar industry here, Georgia SEIA, and I'll give my comments later when appropriate, when y'all are done with your questions. The EMCs here actually do more solar than any other EMCs in the country. It's been very beneficial to them, and obviously they're not going to put that in their ratepayer mix unless it has positive impact on rates. The way that solar impacts everything else is that, as y'all know, it's an energy mix. There's not one form of energy being sold to the customers. Nuclear's not being sold, solar's not being sold. It's a complete mix that the utility uses to provide energy. Solar's the lowest cost per kilowatt. Solar's driving down the rates of all other forms of energy in Georgia, and I heard that come from a utility in a meeting we had earlier this week. So that's, I think, the important part to remember. And we're already doing something very similar in over 80 counties. The distributed generation projects that are done with Georgia Power and through the RFP process have been providing the lowest cost power per kilowatt in Georgia now for a few years. So the overall impact, I think, would be greatly improved and increased, Representative, if we could get this bill done, obviously. And from a 10,000-foot perspective, this bill just allows these folks to operate. The Public Service Commission, Chairman Shaw, and our other good friends over there will structure the program the way it needs to be. The price structure will be determined by the PSC and the utility. So there's no chance, madam, that we would have price fluctuations once that's guaranteed and locked in, just to answer your previous question. And please, for everybody to remember, the utility is providing everything. There's not one customer that would be lost here. This is merely a bill credit that would help drive down the rates for everyone in Georgia, and that's already where we're at now. That's not perspective, that's not a guess. That's the way it's been now for a few years. And so from a 10,000-foot perspective, it's a lot simpler course of action here to allow these folks to operate, and then the Public Service Commission determine the details. As Representative Camp said before, the utility is going to still be your provider in the chance of an emergency. The EMCs and MEAGs are cut out of the bill. They are not impacted by this because the PSC does not have jurisdiction over them. This is merely a bill to help put another arrow in the quiver of the PSC to drive down rates for the consumers. And we've seen it in 80 counties drive down prices. And so it's been a very successful program. Georgia Power does an excellent job. We're not seeking to replace them. We're not a new power company. It would just simply be an additional bill credit that drives down rates for everyone. And I think we've all been paying attention to rates. There's not much driving them down right now.
You have another question over here.
Oh, sure. Sorry, Representative.
In our greatest capacity, what percentage of our energy mix do you think Georgia is capable of in terms of solar? Our greatest percentage.
Right now we're at 3%. It would be nice to be closer to 10.
We could do that.
Foreseeably, that's in the wisdom of the leadership. We can't perspect that unless there's some sort of action. Once there has been an action taken, we can give you what we think would happen with that. What I can tell you this is that nothing would happen here that would drive up rates if we did this. This is something that would be very positive for the ratepayer. And we're at a limit. There's not many more moves we can make here that aren't going to drive down rates. Now the economy could change and we'd have different prices for different fuel sources, but right now that's where we're at.
But in your professional opinion, we could be as high as 10% in Georgia.
Sir, I'm a lobbyist. I'm going to let some smarter people make that assumption, but I think we're around 3% right now.
Thank you. Representative Lewis Ward. Okay, all right. And Chairman Jones.
How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Very well. I'm just going to hold pretty much everything until subcommittee, but if I could direct you to 106 to 108 on the RECs. Can you walk me through what's going to be the determinant? Because according to the end of 107 through 108, may be retired or transferred by the solar financing agent or retired on behalf of the subscribers. So could you maybe walk me through what your decision tree is going to be?
I don't know if I can exactly answer your question, but I'll try. You know, RECs are the environmental attributes of the solar. So if you want to take apart, an electron, you've got the environmental aspect of it being green energy, and you've got the actual energy that it produces. So that's the RECs, just in case people are questioning that. But, RECs serve a very different purpose for different people. Some people want to go solar, and so to be able to claim that they go solar, they have to have those RECs. In a lot of cases, across the country, we sell those RECs back to the utility, and so that the utility can claim those toward their alternative compliance or whatever structure they have in the state. A lot of corporations want to have that green attribute. They want to be able to say that they are a clean green company, and so they want to be able to have those recs. So it's nice to have optionality as a solar developer to see, to figure out how you're going to deal with those. And it just sort of depends on the circumstances and the customers.
And then last question, Mr. Chairman. The bill right now is silent on carbon, and here in Georgia we don't have a BAU around solar. So since there's no BAU around solar, you would expect that to have additionality. Has there been contemplation around what the solar credit could be?
No, sir, but we're happy to listen to you. We've invited all the stakeholders to give input, and would love to hear your thoughts on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Representative Hutchinson, did you have another question?
More of a request, Mr. Chair. I understand this is going to go to subcommittee, but I don't think I'm on that subcommittee. Can we hear at least a little bit from Georgia Power since we've talked about them so much?
Well,
so
I
far?
would say, I'm looking here. I mean, unless I'm misreading, I don't think you are on the subcommittee, but you can, there's nothing prevents you from sitting on the subcommittee.
Only 6 other committees.
Yeah. I mean, no, I intentionally, there's nothing against Georgia Power or any of the people from industry that might want to speak on it. I just thought it'd be a good idea to have Chairman Camp present the bill and hear the people that she's been working with today, and then I have any questions that, because otherwise we'll get bogged down. I mean, there's just no reason to do that at this point. Any other questions?
One, if I could, I just want to spread this, and it can come out in subcommittee. You talk about rates going down. I just want to talk in macro here. I'm a math guy, Steve. If you don't mind, Steve, Mr. Butler.
I played football, so you're probably going to get me on that one.
We've done things for a minute together. But I'm a math guy. At the end of the day, there's money out here that ratepayers are paying, and they're paying that now, and they set the rates, and Georgia Power makes their percentage that they get to make because of the PSC, and people get paid, and when the storm comes in, the poles go back up and all this stuff. What we're proposing to do here is inject another vendor in between the ratepayers and Georgia Power, because the lady said that they're going to stay customers. So you're going to inject another for-profit vendor in the middle. And at macro, I'm just saying there's a sum of money. We're not. I'm just going to ask you this for when it comes to subcommittee. Somebody's got to explain to me who's creating the savings.
The solar energy itself, it's the cheapest form of energy.
Okay, well, I mean, that's not going to work for me. Just so I'm just giving you this, I'm going to need numbers when you come to there, because I'm going to tell you that when you put solar online, you've got to have base load behind it. Okay, and they're not accounting for that. That's just the way it is. If you have something else to show me in the math, so just when we get to there, it's not going to be we've projected. You have this sum of money that's being paid, these electrons that are being built and shipped out. You want to inject somebody out there that wants to make a living, and so the money has to come from some source. So just if you could just be prepared as we go forward to look at the nuts and bolts of it.
We'll have one of the providers for you.
Is very interested about rates and people, and I think a number of people are.
Yes,
so
sir.
Not for today, but for later on.
We'll be happy to do so, but 30,000 feet macro, as you said, the cheapest form of energy helps drive down the price of the others, and we'll demonstrate that to you.
Well, in a perfect world, but again, I'm going to go back to, you're talking about 10% solar. There's nobody on the planet that says you can go to 10% solar without a vast leap forward in battery. There's a cost to that. Are they going to put batteries in?
Well, I'll reiterate. That's why I asked Representative Kennard to wait for some other testimony.
So let's just know we're I heard the representative loud and clear here what she wants to hear for her ratepayers that she represents. I would be asking. I'm assuming the chairman may send it our way, and so I'm want to keep our eyes wide open as Chairman Williamson did. But
thank you, sir.
We got to get to the numbers.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, Chairman Martin, that's why I got involved in this to start with. There is an opportunity for savings to the Georgia Power customers, and I know as an individual who pays a lot for a business, and if I had the opportunity to save 10% on my power bill, that would be significant. So most certainly, we don't want to do anything to offload the base that's necessary for everyone to have reliable power. This is just kind of, I wouldn't even say the icing on the cake. This was the sprinkles you put on top of the icing on the cake. This is not going to be the meat and potatoes of production at this point.
Okay, I think we have, Chairman Meeks, I can't remember if you're a chairman or not. Everybody on here is a chairman. I'll just call you chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just, not necessary to respond today, but for the committee, in reading this bill, and I'm sorry, I've got some sinus issues going on, so I sound like I'm talking in a barrel. It sounds like to me in reading that we're looking at 6 megawatts and under, and as Chairman Williamson said and Chairman Dickey so eloquently said, we're looking at the potential of deregulating 6 kilowatts, 6 megawatts and under. And then, in my estimation, are we removing that from the Public Service Commission and messing with the FERC regulatory program that we have? Because all this is interconnected. When we start deregulating and moving from one jurisdiction to the other. So I want to caution the committee as we move forward, a great thought process. The way that I look at it is, if I become a subscriber, I'm an EMC, as I am an EMC customer, I may be getting the benefit from that subscription, but a Georgia Power customer paid for the infrastructure that's transmitting and moving that electricity. So is it a one-for-one, and are we saving some here and costing others there? It may be unintentional, but are we looking at it from that perspective? And I, like everybody else, Mr. Chairman, have lots of questions, but just wanted to throw that out there for the committee to be thinking about as we start moving forward.
You're on the subcommittee.
Well, and if I could just speak for just a moment, it does not impact EMCs or MEAGs. Those are not regulated under the Public Service Commission. But I do get your point. You don't want it to cost someone else for not being part of it. And that is, I don't want to charge anyone else either. And so that would be where the Public Service Commission would come in and really drill down and look at the figures, work with Georgia Power, and come up with a system that would make sure that no one was paying for someone else's choice.
And this is not deregulation, sir. We are simply going to provide a bill credit. The utility will still be the main provider. We're not replacing one customer. It does provide another option to drive down rates for consumers. And I'll reiterate, we've done this in DG programs in 80 counties extremely successfully. And it's been a benefit to all Georgians. I mean, there's not too many energy commentators or policy advisors that won't tell you that solar's driving down rates here in Georgia, except for the utilities. So it's something that's been very successful for the EMCs. I'll reiterate, they lead the country in this type of fashion. It's been very successful under Georgia Power does a great job. This is not an either-or situation. This is an added benefit for the consumer and another option for leaders to decide if they would like to lower rates for Georgians, because that's exactly what it's been proven to do. The PSC and their leadership, the program was started 10 years ago by Chairman Bubba Watson, or Bubba McDonald, sorry, good golfer. And now it's been continued by Chairman Shaw, and they're both former House members from here. And so solar's brought a great benefit to Georgia. It's gone down price-wise over 57% in the last 10 years, and we're seeking just to give you another option. We're not replacing the utility. We're not going to create another vendor or entity to drive up prices. It just creates a bill credit to drive prices down.
Okay, I think you got a couple more questions. I know we're going to finish up here pretty soon, but Chairman Dickey.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand this from a customer. Whose meter is going to be on their house?
Georgia Power.
Georgia Power they'll still pay Georgia Power
Yes.
meter. Now, y'all will be in the middle then. You will be generating some solar and
Addition.
put it in on Georgia Power's lines, distribution lines,
That we have to pay for, and so does the customer.
that you're going to rent from them or pay.
That'll be
I'm
determined.
just trying to get the mechanics of this in my mind.
Sure, there's interconnection fees that solar providers have to pay.
Okay.
And everybody pays for interconnection for the big utility. We do, the customer does, et cetera. None of that changes. There's not one disruption in what we're doing now. Nothing. It is merely a bill credit. And I know they want to make this bigger than it is. I understand. But it is merely a bill credit. We're not a vendor getting in the middle. We're an additional option to drive down rates because we're the cheapest form of energy.
Okay.
That answer your question more or less?
I gotta
Sufficiently?
think some more on this one.
Okay, all right.
And when appropriate, Mr. Chairman, I was here to give kind of a little bit of an overview that might have answered some of these questions
Well,
on the
it'll
front
have
end,
to
but.
be- I mean, it is getting on late.
Yes, sir, no problem.
I think Representative Lewis Ward, Representative Roman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the subcommittee hearing, which I know I'm not on, but I'm probably going to be there, could we, and whoever's also in the room, I would love to look at some of the costs as it relates to, for example, if you are subscribing to the grid, how much would that cost a solar company typically in Georgia? I would also like to see the costs of if there have been any other projects, for example, that we as taxpayers have paid for on our bills, because I'm hearing in this conversation that there is concern of, well, how much is it going to cost other subscribers for this particular thing? But we all know that we have paid for other projects in the past. And so I would love to see sort of a comparison of how much that's cost bill payers in the past as it pertains to other projects. You know, doesn't matter what kind of project, but I would like to see that comparison. And last but not least, in terms of like the startup element of this, I know you mentioned some like private investment and that kind of thing. If you can maybe provide a little bit more.
Yeah,
about
and
that.
that's the other part. The developers take on all the costs for bringing these onto line. And candidly, that's something that the taxpayer doesn't get the benefit of with the utility. That part is recovered for them. We also don't have a guaranteed profit margin. Profit margin's around 5 to 7%, and I believe the utility's at 13%. It's not hard math to figure out how we get to the savings.
Okay, Chairman Camp. Well, we do have another, if you can pass.
You sure? Okay.
Chairman Camp, you want to have any closing comments for today, and then if you have something else, but it is getting late, though. But,
Yes.
yeah.
It is. I want to thank everyone for being here today and for the robust conversation. I think that the conversation might be the most important takeaway from today, that we've been able to talk about this bill and how it could impact Georgians. We probably don't have all the answers here today. We're going to get some more people to come in. Certainly the Public Service Commission needs to come in. But looking at this through a different lens, I think is really a positive thing. I know, I don't know the age of everyone in this room, but when I was a kid, we had one TV in my house, and you know, we had one telephone that hung on the wall in the kitchen. We probably didn't really use a lot of power at my house. Probably the biggest issue my parents had was they had 3 daughters who took long showers every day. So, but the reality is that, you know, there's a TV in every room in almost everyone's home. We have cell phones plugged up. You know, there's going to be electric vehicles being plugged into garages at some point. We have different energy needs now. And this bill certainly is not going to replace what Plant Vogtle does and what the other energy sources do. This is just an opportunity to add something else in that might help deal with the energy issue we're going to be facing moving forward, by Georgia Power's own words to the PSC in October. So this is not replacing anything. This is just an opportunity and an option for one or more people in an area to get together and say, you know what, we want bill savings, and contract with Georgia Power and with the provider that's putting the solar panels in to have a bill credit. That's all it's doing. It doesn't take away any power from Georgia Power at all. And certainly Georgia Power is one of my power companies. I've got multiple. And I certainly don't want to take anything away from them. I appreciate the fact when the power went out the other night because of a storm, they were Johnny on the spot, sent me a text to let me know, and the power came back on in a couple of hours. I appreciate Georgia Power if you're in the room, which I'm sure you probably are. This is not anything negative towards any power company. It's just an opportunity for private investment to help the grid.
If you got just
Yes, sir. I just want to say
line
Georgia
there.
Power it does an amazing job. I mean, we do help lead the country. This is an addition to help drive down rates, and we work with the power company on many of these things, and we appreciate all that they do.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few closing comments myself. And I don't like to condition things like I'm getting ready to do here, and it's already been done a couple of times, but it's so easy for people to misunderstand and get their feelings hurt and everything else. I mean, it is true that Georgia Power is, in every way that I know how to grade a company or to estimate, you know, I think they do a fantastic job, not just as far as their main mission is to provide electricity, but also across the state and economic development and so many things. And in all honesty, they have some of the, we're fortunate to have some really good people here representing different entities and different industries, and Georgia Power is certainly one of them. They have some of the, I've always, in the years I've been here a long time now, and the people have come and gone. They're not the same people here now that were when I first got here, but they've always been wonderful people to work with, and I feel like you can trust them. And but with that having been said, I do believe that we have to. I think we do have, and one of our jobs is to look after the people of the state. And I think in the energy production process, I think the voice of the consumer, I think of the subscriber, I think sometimes that kind of gets lost. I don't really feel like, and they do a great job here again. I mean, if and I, as the chairman of this committee, if our power goes out during a ice storm, something like that, whatever it is, I mean, I get calls from all over the neighborhood, and I call somebody from Georgia Power, and they're always very responsive, and I'm able to tell my neighbors, I've called Georgia Power, and I think they're going to take care of it as soon as possible, and they do. So I have only the best things to say, but I do feel like that, we have to kind of look at, and this solar, the community solar, is something, notwithstanding some of the things we're getting into in this bill, but the concept of community solar has been something since the first time I ever heard about it. I thought that's interesting. That's something that seems like it makes sense, because some people would like to have rooftop solar. They can't for different reasons, or maybe they just don't want to, but it gives them an opportunity. Now, having said that, you can participate in a community solar program that I think Georgia Power has. I know the EMCs do, where you can do that, and you're basically doing the same thing. You're buying, you're not buying necessarily the solar energy that they produce, but you're buying you're buying into it, and so you can feel good that you're buying into renewables. But I think that we need to look at different things. Several times in my conversations, as always, the Territorial Act has been invoked, and the Territorial Act was written back in the 70s or 1980, and I think former Representative Bub McDonald may have been the driving force. He may have written it, or some people even here, some others in here were part of that, and they did a great job, and it probably really did a lot to saving the state from the problems that were happening at that time when they did that. But it has been around for a long time, and solar wasn't even an issue back then when they did that. And so some of these things have come along that really they need to be looked at. I'm not saying that, and I am not going to say that we need to blow open the Territorial Act or anything like that. The only thing I would ask of the committee members, and I appreciate your time today, and it's been a really good turnout, and I didn't expect it to be this good a turnout this late in the day, but I would just ask you, to the extent possible, to keep an open mind on this, and I'm not advocating for the bill one way or the other. I just want to make sure that there's a fair hearing and a fair process. And with that, I'm going to ask, I'm going to do it the way that, I've set it up to be done. That is that Chairman Martin is the chairman of the Energy Subcommittee. And I'm going to replace Barry Fleming, Representative Fleming, has left us, which left a vacancy on there, to which I'm going to appoint Representative Roman to that subcommittee. And I would just ask you, Chairman Martin, and here again I said before that day 28 is going to creep up on us. It's not upon us yet, but it's going to creep up on us. So I would like to be able to, if we're going to do something with this, and if the committee decides to do that, I would like to be able to look at the next meeting, which will be next Tuesday. That's what I'd like to look at. It doesn't have to be. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and I don't, you, as always, it's your, it's your
I'll be your date, Mr. Chairman.
It's your subcommittee. You run it the way you want to. You schedule it when you want to. Anybody that's not on that subcommittee, by the way, is welcome to go to it. And I would ask you to do this. I would ask you to have a full hearing on it with any industry, anybody from industry that wants to come in and testify. And here again, you run it the way that you want to run it. That's the way that I always ask you to do it, and you always do a great job of it. But I would ask you to have a full hearing on it without a vote, and then we would look to have a second meeting, probably a shorter meeting after that, you know, you don't have to go through that whole process of testimony and everything again. And then a shorter meeting after that we can get together and talk about to look at having to do whatever Chairman Camp wants to do. I mean, it's her bill. And at that point, you know, she'll let you know what she wants to do, and that'll be up to you and the subcommittee. And if y'all decide to do something with it and bring it back, then it'll come back in the whole committee, and it'll be at that point like we normally do. It'll be a relatively short meeting. We'll just take the recommendation from the subcommittee at that point. But I would ask you to ask everybody to the point possible to keep an open mind about it. And I mean, I still have some questions myself. I'll attend the subcommittee meeting and probably ask some questions there too. So with that, is there anything else? Chairman Martin.
If I can, I will look to connect with Chairman Camp, the interested parties, seriously tomorrow by phone or by email toward setting up the first opportunity to get together.
Very good. Anything else? With that, we are adjourned.